Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Vance. This President's Day, President Biden is using a new survey to go after Trump. But Trump's touting his lead in the polls as he continues to allege election interference from the Biden White House. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from the White House.
Quote, happy President's Day unless you're Donald Trump. That's what President Biden's campaign saying on Monday, citing a new survey done by a group of self-described presidential experts. The survey ranks Abraham Lincoln as the best president, Biden as the 14th best, and Trump as the worst ever in history. While Biden's campaign is using that to attack Trump, latest polling shows Trump continues to hold a slight advantage over Biden in a potential fall rematch. And poll aggregator 538 shows that Biden's approval rating, now less than 40%, is lower than all 7 of his predecessors at the same point in their presidencies.
You know, we're leading Biden by so much.
Trump over the weekend touting his lead in polls while decrying what he calls election interference in 2024.
And all of these corrupt persecutions that they're doing are only happening because I am running for president and leading big in the polls.
All this is as Russia continues to be in the news, and Trump on Monday for the first time publicly spoke out about Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny's sudden death in prison. But instead of blaming it on Putin like Biden and Nikki Haley did, Trump instead linked it to his personal legal situation, saying it had made him more aware of what's happening in this country and that, quote, grossly unfair courtroom decisions are destroying America. Biden, meanwhile, says is weighing more sanctions on Russia over Navalny's death.
We already have sanctions moving and we're considering additional sanctions, yes.
And President Biden is set to campaign in California this week, while Trump is set to campaign in South Carolina, where he's leading Nikki Haley by double digits ahead of the Saturday GOP primary. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
And President Biden's brother will be on Capitol Hill later this week for a closed-door interview. It will be key testimony for House Republicans as they take their next step in a months-long investigation probing large money transfers within the Biden family. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
2 key testimonies are taking place behind closed doors on Capitol Hill later this month as Republicans continue their months-long impeachment inquiry into President Biden. The first is the president's brother, James Biden. He'll be answering questions about a money trail within the Biden family that Republicans claim is ultimately sourced from foreign countries in part of a larger bribery scheme. Lawmakers on the Oversight Committee will likely focus in on a $40,000 check and a $200,000 check that James Biden paid to his brother in 2017 and 2018. They were listed as loans, but the Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer questions that since the money came the same day that James Biden received money from one of his business interests, now bankrupt AmeriCorps. In addition to speaking with the president's family members, lawmakers on the Oversight Committee have also sought testimony from several former Biden family business associates. For example, Tony Bobulinski, in his testimony before the Oversight Committee last week, brought up the issue of a Chinese energy company, the boss of which President Biden previously met with in 2017. Bobulinski told lawmakers bluntly his family's foreign influence peddling operation from China to Ukraine and elsewhere sold out to foreign actors who were seeking to gain influence and access to Joe Biden and the United States government. Although President Biden has repeatedly denied these allegations, saying he has not spoken with his family members about their business endeavors. And next week, the president's son, Hunter Biden, has finally agreed to meet behind closed doors with the Oversight Committee after defying the first subpoena that they sent him, as well as making a surprise visit to Capitol Hill when they were getting ready to hold him in contempt of Congress. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
President Biden's mental and physical fitness remain in the spotlight as his campaign enters full swing. This in addition to opposition among Democratic voters over the president's policy on Israel, complicating things. Joining us now to discuss some of Biden's campaign challenges, we have Whit Ayers, founder and president of North Star Opinion Research. Whit Ayers, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy to do it.
Of course, with a recent Monmouth University poll finding that only 32% of the folks surveyed have confidence in President Biden's mental and physical stamina to perform the job of president. If confidence in Biden's mental and physical health continued to decline, how do you think this might impact his candidacy?
It's a major problem for the administration. 70% of Americans or more think he is too old to serve effectively in a second term, and that includes a majority of Democrats, his own party members. So it's a major, major problem for him, and it's a problem he can't do anything about. He's not going to get any younger by November. He's not going to get any more vigorous physically, and he's not going to get any sharper mentally. So it's a major hurdle for him to get over.
Well, you mentioned an interesting point, which is it's something that he can't do anything about, but the Democratic Party might be able to. We're also seeing right now today even pushback among certain House Democrats, Rashida Tlaib, over his policy on Israel, which could essentially affect the general election because of the pressure from Muslim voters, specifically in the state of Michigan. Is there anything that you foresee the Democrat Party might be able to do come their convention?
It's a challenge because of the situation in Israel with Hamas and Gaza, and a number of the more liberal Democrats are resistant to continuing to send aid to Israel as long as the Gaza war goes on. So it's a problem for the Biden coalition getting together and staying together.
So on top of obviously the general election, before that, there's a lot of key primaries coming up in March for both the House and the Senate. I want to talk to you about the Ohio Senate Republican primary race. Trump has endorsed businessman Bernie Moreno, and Trump Jr. will be campaigning for him in Ohio later this month. Do you think that he can win that Republican primary and flip the seat for Republicans in the Senate?
It's entirely possible. Sherrod Brown is a longtime fixture in Ohio politics, but it's entirely possible that a Republican could flip it. A lot of it depends upon the top of the ticket. If Donald Trump is the Republican nominee and does very well in Ohio, it will be a lot easier to flip that Senate seat.
And to your point, there's been a lot of political back and forth and rhetoric about whether Trump does have that ability to help or hurt down ballot races. People kind of casting blame on Trump for losing the midterms. But of course, to your point, he was not at the top of that ballot. So, I think each race takes particular context, and that election cycle has its own context, and you have to dig into it. Do you think Trump ultimately helps the down ballot races this election?
Well, in Georgia in 2020, some 30,000 Georgians went to the polls, skipped the presidential race because they did not want to vote for Donald Trump, and then voted for Republicans in down ballot races. Donald Trump is a great turnout machine for both Republicans and Democrats, which is why we've had some of the highest turnout we've ever seen in American elections when he's been on the ballot. So it's hard to say whether he's going to generate more Republican or more Democratic votes if he is indeed the nominee for the Republican Party.
There's a lot of fascinating posturing and jockeying taking place. Lastly, in California, you have the race for Senate there. What do you make of Adam Schiff supporting Garvey and Porter there supporting Republican and Trump supporter Eric Early in their campaign ads? Will that tactic ultimately hurt Democrats, even if Schiff is the ultimate frontrunner?
I think that most parties in this polarized age will rally around their ultimate nominee for Senate. And so I don't think you're likely to see lasting effects in a general election of a competitive primary. America is just too polarized, and Democrats and Republicans are living in different worlds right now. And so I think ultimately each party will rally around its own nominee.
Whit Ayers, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Happy to do it.
President Biden and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer demanding that House Republicans pass that $95 billion foreign aid bill. The package includes $60 billion for Ukraine. And Republican Senator J.D. Vance, among those opposing that bill, here's what he had to say at the Munich Security Conference.
Look, the reason is very simple. Number one, I don't think spending another $61 billion of American money actually helps the Ukrainians that much because, again, our munition supplies are fundamentally depleted. There's only so much that we can do with additional dollars. That's number one. Number two, I think that we have to wake up to the reality, and the reality is this is going to end in a negotiated settlement of some type. I think American policy and American diplomacy should be trying to bring that about as quickly as possible.
Vance says European nations need to step up and do more for their own defense if they truly consider Russia a threat. He says that because the U.S. is pivoting its focus to East Asia and many critical weapons are in short supply, Vance also saying that the war in Ukraine lacks a clear endpoint and that aid would not fundamentally change the reality on the battlefield. The senator estimates there's a 50-50 chance that the foreign aid package will fail in the House of Representatives. Speaker Mike Johnson and others in the GOP have issues with that bill. Many cite the absence of provisions for border security. Johnson has said that he won't be rushed into approving that package. The House of Representatives is currently in recess. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.